Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. We're going to take another look at the Anvil Terrapin, this time armed with the questions and answers that have been answered. So with every concept ship that CIG produced, they then produce two Q&As, further explaining the role of the ship and answering the most burning questions that were asked. I've condensed down some bits that weren't previously discussed in my original Ship Buyer's Guide video, link in the description for that. Shameless extra plugs for me. But let's jump right in. Loadouts. So, a quick correction. The Terrapin's size 5 turret is actually referring to the old system of weapon mounts and will be revised to reflect the true size of the hardpoint set for twin size 2 gun turrets. So, in the new system, that's going to result into a smaller hardpoint. I believe that this will be a size 4 mount, going by the size 2 twin linked, which would be size 3, and then if that's turreted, that would be size 4. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll link to the new guide on how weapon mounts work, just so you can get your head around that. But even with just two size 2 gimbaled weapons, with its abundance of power, this could make some extremely powerful setups still. CIG are also looking into weapons that allow suppressive fire, point defense, or even disruption that might be very, very useful for the Terrapin in the future. For a small ship, the Terrapin carries much larger shields and much larger power plants than its class would normally allow, similar to that of like a Constellation. It has much higher power needs, obviously, and therefore is likely to have a much larger signal and signature if not managed properly. In regards to its modularity, it doesn't really have modularity. The Terrapin isn't a modular ship. You can't remove the center seat. It doesn't really have room for cargo. Its role is hardened exploration, reconnaissance, scouting, with data gathering in mind. There aren't any variants planned either. The size 4 utility mount, however, can be changed, and that will affect its role and uses the most. There is no cargo space, although you could probably chuck small items in the back at your own risk. There'll be limited space for like exploration samples and that sort of thing, but it hasn't got a traditional cargo. The size 4 mount isn't for offensive items though, it's for support really. The Terrapin's radar dish and scanning arrays will enhance long range capabilities of the installed radar and scanners that it normally has, making it far more capable than other ships would be. The usefulness of this like armoured utility platform will grow in the future. We're likely to see tracking, command and control, AWACS, and various scanning equipment coming online in the future. The Terrapin can also run at near silent, so it's like a submarine almost, and that's the kind of feel that CIG are giving it. Managing the Terrapin's heat and signature are all part of its role, all part of its intended gameplay. You're going to try and avoid combat where possible, but if you do get discovered in whatever you're doing, whether that's exploration, reconnaissance, scouting, search and rescue, you're going to be able to take the damage, you're going to be able to try and get away, you're going to be able to take a lot of direct fire. Let's talk a bit about its speed and agility. The Terrapin will have to land to dock with the ship. It doesn't have any external like docking collars or anything. It's not going to be as agile as a Gladiator or fighters, obviously. It's not intended to go toe-to-toe with the fighters. Gladiators are designed to avoid and strafe some fire. The travel range on the Terrapin will be very long. It's got big hydrogen and quantum fuel tanks. It's designed to stay out in the verse for as long as possible. The Terrapin is solid, heavy, and therefore somewhat slow to accelerate. It's going to take time in both space and atmosphere to get up to speed and to turn properly. In combat, pilots should focus on escape techniques that aren't just running away. It's got various other defensive capabilities rather than just trying to outmaneuver your opponent. You're going to be able to go into areas of space that possibly other ships aren't allowed to or aren't able to safely, and be able to tank lots of other damage. But it could be environmental hazards, it could be storms, it could be asteroid belts that are very, very dense. Avoidance and covert enemy detection are preferable though. You've got those big scanners, you might as well use them. Something that's really interesting that was also said in the Q&As were we're talking about storms planet side, and it might not be worth breaking orbit when you can't scan because you're in a storm and your sensors might be affected, you might want to just lock your ship down and ride out the storm. The idea of storms in Star Citizen, we'll probably talk about that in a different video. I didn't realise there was going to be weather systems like that on planets. That is extremely exciting, super excite, but I like the fact that also affects sensors. And that ships like the Terrapin, even though it's tanky, will be affected heavily because it can't do its main avoidance and detection kind of thing while in a storm. Roles and gameplay. Let's talk about its actual gameplay. The Terrapin has a lot of endurance, but it's not built to engage fighters or other direct combat situations. Its power is intelligence, and its scanning arrays allow it to see and shadow enemies but not be seen itself if you're clever. And those clever pilots, you're going to need to keep your signature low. You're going to need to master the signature management, turning down your power, keeping just essential systems running for more covert scouting. But also, if you do get seen, you can take a lot of damage and survive if discovered. It's a military intel ship after all. Your job could be to ID where an enemy is and call in friendlies to take them out, or to rescue some pilots that have been captured, or just go exploring in somewhere that you think might be dangerous. You could even use it as a reconnaissance craft in Vandal space, that sort of thing. The Terrapin has no real cargo space though, but as I said, it excels in intel recon, finding and cataloguing critical information, discovering points of interest, but not really salvage or trinkets. It's not really interested in them in the same way that other exploration ships might be. Scanning and detection, including dedicated utility hardpoints for doubling down extra scanning abilities, make the ship kind of ideal for data processing larger volumes of information and that sort of stuff than other smaller explorers. But the real kind of point behind the Terrapin is to locate valuable things for your friends. When you bring the Terrapin home, you can sell that information to other parties, whether that be friends or orgs, NPCs, that sort of stuff, or you can just keep that information for yourself and take out a different ship specially outfitted to exploit those resources or whatever you've discovered. A few other various points. The Terrapin does have a bed, but only one. It's designed really to have one crewman on duty at all time. It's a up to 2 crewman ship, but will happily suit a single person. The Terrapin has the potential of having a very large signature as heat builds up and can vent that heat if it retracts its armour, allowing much quicker venting. But that does weaken the ship if you do that. It's very much got the feel of a submarine coming up for air, and lots of other things would suggest that as well, that CIG have gone for, let's make a sub in space. There is no ejection seat. You'll have to jump out the side of the ship to escape, although probably staying in the ship is the best idea in escape. You are a very tough nut to crack. They are looking at the possibility of having more seating as well in the back of the Terrapin to suit a more rescue dropship-esque role, but we'll have to see exactly what they do for that. The Terrapin's focus is on data collection, although it can store a small limited amount of exploration samples too, as I probably mentioned earlier. How does it compare to the Freelancer? So the Terrapin is a lot tougher and more military orientated than a Freelancer. It's also smaller, it can take a lot of fire, and it's more of a reconnaissance, combat, rescue and dangerous exploration craft. The Freelancer DUR though, or Freelancer, can carry cargo, is much lighter armoured, less of a reconnaissance ship, but more of a multi-role ship with cargo and crew. It's going for a different kind of niche than the very specific Terrapin is, with its kind of slant towards data collection, reconnaissance, and scouting. And that's it for the Q&As for the Terrapin. If you would like to learn more, please check out the description below. It has links to the Q&As and the original Terrapin stuff, as well as my video on the whole subject, explaining a bit more the different roles of the Terrapin and that sale that we've just had. Please don't forget to like and subscribe as well. That really genuinely does help me. As well as, if you comment on any of our Star Citizen videos between now and the end of September, you have a chance to win that budget build PC I did a while ago, or an Argo based on various things. But if you win, we'll talk about that. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the verse.